Record. Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Friday. Oh my gosh, what is it? April the 7th. Friday, April 7th. Can you believe it? How fast things are moving and where we're at. This is product launch month, and many of you have already submitted your flyers that co-brand the Active Wellness Tour along with the product launch. Just use product launch, Nikken product launch in your event talk title. So there's plenty of examples already posted on the Active Wellness Tour that you can see what I mean. You just have the title, Nikken product launch is a great, or some people are calling it the everyday organic weight management or organic weight management as the talk title. So that's an indicator that that's what they're going to be focusing on in terms of the presenting of the product segment of that event. But I do want to actually make sure that we are on the same page, that if you're hosting a product launch, don't lose the opportunity to introduce the business, because it's the thing that makes our business viable, is the expansion of our organizations. And so sharing the business opportunity, that is a product in itself, as we've discussed with the gig economy and the need for people to generate some more income. Now, I've been sort of struggling with trying to come up with something that would add to the equation and fuel the fire of your enthusiasm and what makes launch partners launch partners. I can see that we don't have as many people on today's call. Either they're not aware there is a call, or they're at the Mayakoba event. A lot of the Team Kaizen members are there. And so I just thought we would go ahead and do this call as regularly scheduled, since I am available. So we have had a focus, however, on some content over the last 2 weeks, and that is the contact and invite. And I'm hoping that by now many of you have had some experience with that approach and are seeing how different it is and how people respond differently. So if that's true for you, let's take a few minutes in this call to just reflect on what's been happening in terms of your contact and invite, because not only do we want to have more events, but we want to have more people at those events. And so has there been a distinction? Has there been a clear distinction in your approach and how that's working for you?
I've contacted 3 businesses that in the past didn't want to be prospected. And that's the approach I used. And they're willing to meet with me, because what I asked for was help. You're an entrepreneur, you've been in the business. I really want to pick so thus far, I have 3 willing to meet. 2 appointments set, the other one we haven't set a time yet.
So you're saying this approach is more effective for business people?
The ones I wanted to go back to, over the years, the chicken list that
Yes.
I've spoken to so many times. So those were the 3, 1 chiropractor and 2 other business people. And so, Madeline, I've told you before, I'm not interested. I said, this time I really want your help. And one is a Latino leader, because that has been the market that I have not been able to get into here. And they're willing to meet. Now, with that, I'll help you with that. So I have the president of city council who referred me to somebody else. And so there will be 3 of us on that meeting at the El Centro Social Services Agency. The other thing that was helpful, Mike, is your luncheon was the lock-in event. There was a different product launch at the Anytime Fitness this time. Scott, the trainer they came in for lunch and left. He had 2 business prospects there. And then he had, for your information, he says 2 others said they went online, everything's online. And when they looked online, there's negative out there online. I don't check it, so I don't know about Nikken. So then I role played with him about going back and saying, that's exactly what the opportunity is. There were people that left that aren't happy. So there's a huge opportunity for new people. First quarter has demonstrated that. He said, good idea. That's all he needed to hear. So he was going to go back and reapproach them, that all you did was an online discovery process. Would you be willing to meet for 15 minutes to show the products and hear what's new? So I didn't realize that, that there's negative stuff out online, I guess, because I don't look for the negative. So but that other people might be experiencing too, you know, because everything is so online. People are doing their diligence.
Well, I'll tell you, the only thing you're going to get as far as negative online is not related to the product. There's nothing negative with respect to the product. So that's one of our strengths, is to point that out.
Actually, there has been in the past. There's been some pictures of waterfalls and not waterfalls. I think the aquapours. There's still a lot of outdated stuff out there too. Not being able to get something shipped back or whatever. There have been.
Yeah, but that's a process. That's not a product.
No, I understand.
But essentially, the products are untainted, and so we have that as a strength. But with respect to negativity, you know, the problem with network marketing is it lets everybody in. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. It's like democracy. Democracy has built within its own failure, because everybody can vote and not everybody's qualified to. So at the end of the day, the people who are you know, making negative comments are not necessarily people who are credible.
No, the tip for us would be to do, like you said, we have the product. You want to show them what we have that's uniquely different, so their first look isn't necessarily online.
Yeah, well, that's true. But at the same time, remember, in terms of priorities, the highest priority, the highest value is a one-on-one. That's the highest thing you could do in terms of priority of being able to meet with or connect with or share information about Nikken. Top priority would be in person. And then you go from there. So in person, one-on-one. Then the next level would be in person where there's more than one person, where there may be an A. And then the next one from that is in person where there might be several Bs, you know, like an in-home, like a preview, where you've got multiple Bs, multiple Cs, even maybe multiple As. And then from there, it's online, where it's a little bit less personal, a little bit less interaction, etc. So if you want the highest value, the highest yield, you want to give your top prospects the best opportunity to experience this through your eyes, then get in front of them. And so that contact and invite approach is highly prized and valued for that particular engagement, to get the appointment. Carol, I see you're nodding your head. So what's happened with you?
Well, the first thing, I just took your May 27th, and I wrote it out by hand. So for me, no, really for me, what is so critical is the concrete directions of what to do. You know, I mean, like how to do it, what to do. It's phenomenal.
You're saying the March 27, the March 27 Aligning with Success
Aligning.
Call? Okay. So just for everybody's clarity, March 27, Aligning with Success call, where we got very much into the contact and invite process, which is the critical process in this whole thing. And you can retrieve that video or watch that video on YouTube via the Royal Alliance. So go to the Royal Alliance YouTube channel. You can access that by either going to theroyalalliance.com or just simply doing a search in Google or in YouTube for that particular meeting.
Right. And then I've listened to the process and launch. Is that?
Yep.
That one. And I had already listened to Contact Invite. And I heard, are there two that you want us to listen? Yes, yeah, because what you said last week or whatever was, Madeline was listening to the original.
The original Contact and Invite. So if you search on YouTube for Contact and Invite with Mike DiMuccio or Michael DiMuccio, I can't remember what it is, but you'll find the original Contact and Invite audio. Yep.
And you redirected her, or all of us, to the Aligning with Success, March 27th.
Yes.
So you put the two together. Okay, so that's what I've been doing, is trying to go and really get this process. And I just have to say that you actually, when you embodied at the launch, you embodied what you're asking us to do. And so Christine is really on. We're working, I mean, I'm 3 hours away, but we're working. Today there was more hope that she might come to Orlando. And so what I'm saying is I am internalizing it, and I'm following through on those that experienced you. And so there's excitement there. So now I need to, this week, actually really heavy, a number of times go out and actually do this.
You know what? Hold that thought for a second, because I'm working with Mary Chiba in Peru.
Yeah.
And she just sponsored, I think it was 20 people in 90 days. 20 people in 90 days, personally sponsored. And I went through this with her, and the piece of the recruiting process that she's not engaged them with is what I call conversation number 3 in that process and launch strategy, which I'm 99% certain most people don't actually do. And it's the most important step in converting somebody who is a registered consultant to somebody who is a launch partner, essentially. Not a launch partner in the context of what we're doing here on this call, but a launch partner locally in the context of who are you working with to launch in this next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So helping to identify your partners so that you can assemble your team. And so right now we're in that phase with her group right now. She just identified number 6 today. So she has 6 of those 20 identified as launch partners, because we're engaging in a process with them to complete that last conversation so that they can say, yeah, count me in, I want to be part of that. So the question is, what is it that that you're creating that they want to be part of, so that you can really get your local market launched? And then, of course, from that it expands. But the idea here is to assemble a team. The mindset is assemble a team. The communication, the dialogue is assembling a team, so that we're not just asking somebody to step into being in the business or step into launching their own personal business. We're asking them, that's all part of it. We're asking them to step in and help us put Nikken on the map. And that creates an atmosphere of teamwork, that creates a collaboration, the idea that we're going to work together to create something bigger than all of us. And we all get to be a part of it, and we all contribute to it, and we all benefit from it. And that is the distinction of that third conversation. It's where that third conversation really helps people to understand that it's not about getting into Nikken. It's about building a large and successful business with a collaboration of people, starting where where you are locally. So, Carol, your agenda with the people that I've met with, that we met with when I was there, is to reinforce that point that you're in the phase of your business. It's a phase. Right. You're in the first phase of your business, which is to assemble the team.
Right.
That's the first phase. And then you're launching that team, but what you're launching is multiple fronts all together. So Mary's first question to me was, how am I going to manage 6 people launching at the same time? I mean, because she's only ever done one at a time. How do I do a team approach? I said, well, you tell me, how would you do it? They're all at the same time. I said, so let's work this backwards. If each of them were contacting 5 people a day, and they were contacting, inviting those people to sit down and have a meeting, and you've got 6 people who've got, let's say, 3 people each this week. That's 18 people. Where are you going to meet these people?
All together.
Where?
Online.
Where you see the question now presents how am I going to manage 18 people in one space? So online is one solution. Remember, that's the secondary solution, not the primary solution. The highest prize solution is in person.
Yeah, so, they can all get together. There's the competitive piece
at
too.
Orlando or at the...
Well, we can't wait till Orlando. She has to meet with them right away. That's a weekly event. So these people are going to be every single week contacting and inviting 5 people a day. Where are they going to bring these people who say, yes, show me more? And you've got 6 people all at the same time doing it. See, this is the difference between process and strategy that I get into in that video, process and launch. Process is contact and invite, present the information. That's those three conversations. That's if you're handling one person. That's the stream of thinking, the process for one person. But if you've got 5, 10, 15 going through that process all this week at the same time, Or you've got 6 legs who have 3 or 4 or 5 of their own each, all at the same time, having these conversations. How do you manage that traffic? The answer is you bring them together. How? Well, there's an in-home. That's one way of bringing them together. Will your living room handle 18 people? No? Well, I guess we need a room bigger than your living room. So you start to think, okay, then I'm going to have a regularly scheduled place so that we can meet these people that we're engaging at the front end of the process. That's strategy. Strategy is different than process. Strategy is, how big a pot do I need to cook a meal for 10 people? If I'm only cooking a pasta, for instance, for myself, I only need a small pot, but I still need a pot because I still need to boil water. But if I'm cooking for 5 people, I need a bigger pot. Still need to boil water. That's process. But how much water do I have to boil? That's strategy. So when you're launching people and simultaneously multiple lines, multiple people at the same time, or when you're launching through somebody and you're going to help them expand, it's the same idea. You've got to think about, how am I going to handle the traffic? And that's where those public events become valuable. So previews, in the past tense we refer to as wellness previews, they were a consequence. They were something that resulted as a need to be filled because we had so many people coming to meetings at the same time and you didn't have the means to handle them one at a time. So we had to handle them together. So wellness previews come and go based on who's getting launched where. So it's not uncommon for a wellness preview to reach an epicenter, and then it starts to, then there's, from that group, there's groups spread out. And so the main one that got it started starts to get smaller. It's the same concept as dropping the pebble in the pond. Big splash, and then those ripple effects. And then after a while, you look at the middle and there's nothing happening there. That wellness preview is not having much happen. Why? Because the need is not there. The preview comes as a consequence of the traffic of people that you're trying to manage all at the same time. So what we're engaging in right now through this entire Launch Partners experience is a relaunch where all of us are creating the need for such an event. Hence, I've asked you each to commit to 3 events, at least 1 per month, so at least we know we have 1 of those public events on the calendar, so that now we have 3-4 weeks to build up for that event to create the traffic, the flow. And so the teaching, the training now is focused on, how do we get the flow? Because we have the event, but we got to get the flow. So that's how you do it. You work backwards. You think, oh no, let me get the flow and then I'll have the event. You dig the trench. If you're ready, if you're expecting for the rain to fall, you better dig the trench now. Otherwise, where are you going to catch it? So it's working backwards. It's using the law of attraction. It's creating expectation. I have an event. I'm planning for an event of a certain size. Now let me get the people to the event. If you build it, they will come. So now how do I get them to come? Now we go to work. The daily contact and invite that leads to those conversations that flow that traffic.
If I could use an example, Michelle and I have been doing these Thursday evening product showcases. So last night, we started with just 4 distributors, and then Jerome was texting me to remind me on my website about an ABC that he had scheduled. He had changed the time. So I said to log into there, and it was what you just gave an example of. It ended up being all these A's for this prospect that we had already done 1 conversation, and he had primed her for the business presentation. Well, what we did was everybody kind of said why they were there, and then Michelle clipped through the product showcase. At the end of it, we have the next meeting schedule tonight, Zoom, and tomorrow she's coming to the product launch that's in Cleveland. So what I asked everybody that was there, and I share it with you, at Eastern Standard Time, it's 8 o'clock every Thursday. Next Thursday's Holy Thursday, we're not doing it. And the last Thursday, we're at the Orlando event. But 2 Thursdays away we are, and then after that, it'll be a clockwork. And Randy does the same one live at 11 a.m. Pacific time. It worked so well last night. It was a big aha for Christine and Eunice. They were sharing who they had invited because their product launch is Monday, and that woman just lit up. So I texted him afterwards and said, did you see what happened as far as bringing in some A's to get the person actually to the event, not saying they're going to come and then be a no-show. So that was backtracking to what you were mentioning earlier. So we need to promote those events too, all of us, those online events. Barbara Joseph does tune in on Tuesday, so we really have a Tuesday evening, a Thursday evening, and a Thursday morning.
It's important to note, though, that those events are there as a conversation that helps supplement a conversation. So if you don't have clear understanding of the process, you're not going to know when to have that conversation, what the value of that conversation being pre-scheduled is. But if I know that I've got a call on Wednesday and today's Monday, then all the contacts and invite that I make in the next 24 hours, I have a place to take them. Send them to as part of that invitation, that contact and invite. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to get together with you as soon as possible, because on Wednesday evening, there's a full disclosure event taking place online that I'd like to have you attend, but you're going to need some insights and some information before that. Otherwise, it's not going to have the same value to you. So I'm going to use the event as a reason to have the conversation, the first conversation that we need to have now, so that they're prepared for that event. I'm using the event not as a thing to invite them to, but as a reason why we need to inform them of the first conversation now, so that they're qualified to be at that second conversation. And
Mike,
so it creates urgency.
But it's this kind of application that we're doing by being able to share with one another that we are learning. What we have with Zoom now is we have a couple different in-homes going on where you can have your own in-home, be doing your thing, and then just log in for the actual 15-minute overview with the slides. So there you have your A's coming in so that you're doing something, which is why we have the earlier time in the evening so that you can have your event at home. And the Grubers and I have done that with our Tuesday, Wednesday product showcase. We're going to do it again on a Tuesday at 11 in the morning, 8 in the evening, where we're helping one another in our own homes for that one. We were in a site for this one. So that's what I mean by leveraging that. So unless we all are aware of when we have them, you know, if we have those going on ahead of time, then we can plug people in.
That's good. That's important. But keep this in mind. Not every event is the same event.
Right.
So once somebody's had that conversation, what's the next conversation? So if you're not aware of the process and you're not pre-planning a flow, you've got to plan the flow. You've got to expect flow. If you're just doing what I call the onesies and twosies, one person at a time, and you're trying to hatch that egg at a pace that is accommodating to them because you have no expectation of when that process should come to a conclusion, then you're doing the onesies and twosies. This week, I've been prospecting so-and-so, and they're this, and then I have a 4-hour conversation about one person. That is a waste of my time and yours. So rather than that, I would rather have an understanding of the process. I've got 5 people who are in step number 1, getting ready for step number 2. And then out of that, 3 people went into step number 2. From that, 2 of them want to complete the process because they're still interested in the business. They want to learn what it takes to get excited, to get going. So you've got a very clear step 1, step 2, step 3, conversation 1, conversation 2, conversation 3, a process. Now, if you did that every week, when are you scheduling the time to have those conversations? I'll give an example, my example. When I launched Mexico, or when I launched Toronto, doesn't matter. When I launch a city, I have in the calendar for the week different events because I need to move people from event to close the process. But when I'm launching a city, I'm not doing it onesies and twosies. I know I'm going to have a traffic. I'm going to have flow. So I've got to establish the meeting schedule that this is the first conversation. This is the second conversation, and this is the third conversation. These are the times and events for that. So the what it takes, the third conversation for me is usually on the weekend if I'm there during that span of time. So I'll give an example. When I launched Toronto, I had conversation number 1 taking place normally in one-on-ones. Everybody was taught that should happen one-on-one because the more impact the greater the impact, the more likely they're going to come to conversation number 2, which is full disclosure. That's the preview. That's where they're going to see the whole bells and whistles of Nika and all the moving parts. But if I can't get the interest stage there, they're not going to take time out of their schedule to be, whether it's online or whether it's in person, they're just not going to take the time because the interest is not yet established. So the first thing I taught everybody was one-on-one, go out there, make contact, connect with people up close and in person, especially if they're their top people on your list, so that you can create the value, the interest, and getting feedback. Somebody just came on. If you just came on, would you mind muting yourself? That's it. Thank you. So, so that's the first conversation. It should be sort of one-on-one as much as you can. Or if you're launching somebody brand new, ABCs with them. Conversation number 2 typically is the full presentation of Nikan, both business and products. That conversation normally happens in an in-home. But again, it depends on how many people you expect to see that particular night. And if you're doing what I was doing, which is a big launch with 10 people, there were 10 of us plus me, 11, all at the same time trying to populate our meeting schedule, our calendar of events. So there's no way we're going to fit in a living room. So we had pre-booked a hotel for a Tuesday evening and a Thursday evening because I needed those evenings to be conversation number 2 evenings. And then on Saturday, we would have conversation number 3, Saturday morning. So Saturday morning was the time that was reserved for conversation number 3, what it takes. Well, who would end up in conversation number 3? It wouldn't be the same number of people in conversations 1 or 2. It was a filtering process. So conversation number 1, creating interest, was that one-on-one. That's that contact and invite every single day, 5 to 6 people a day. Everybody's responsible for that. That's the daily rhythm. Everybody's got to do it. Then conversation number 2 is the interested parties from there who made a decision or commitment to come to the second conversation had an option. It was Tuesday or it was Thursday. And so that presentation was done in a public venue to accommodate simply the flow of launching that business. For most of you, an in-home would be sufficient if you're launching somebody new or if you're just launching yourself. For most of you, an in-home would be sufficient. But we had a Tuesday and Thursday option. So now, who comes from that are the ones, after a full disclosure, you're going to have people sign up on the spot. You're going to have people buy products on the spot. Do you know if those people are business builders yet? We don't. We just know that they're a customer / consultant. Now we have to distinguish, are they going to be a launch partner? Well, they need to know what that even means before they can say yes. So we have to have conversation number 3. Well, when you're trying to make so many people come to that conversation at the same time, you can't have them random. You just create a time and place. Here's where we have conversation number 3. And then that's the next step. The next logical step for those who want to know how to build a business, they get invited to conversation number 3, which in my case was a Saturday. And so I would have that conversation, and that would be about getting started and what it takes to get your business off the ground, the kind of investment you should be considering in terms of your product mix, some of the tools, etc. So they were getting an orientation. In fact, I called it the strategy session or strategy and orientation session. So the idea was, it was strategy and orientation session. It was the SOS. Why? Because they can't say yes to launching their business. They can't say yes to engaging in their business until they know what that means, what that looks like. So that's the third conversation. So by the end of the week, whoever made it through all 3 conversations, they were in. Not only were they in, they were all senior, and at that time senior, or executive. Very unlikely that they wouldn't at least purchase their starting products. And so that following week after they were in was just logistics, getting their orders, getting their list made up, familiarizing themselves with the contact and invite. It was just an orientation week. And then the following week, we would usually then get engagement. How? By doing the process over again, contacting and inviting 5 to 6 people per day, having a set schedule of events that we can invite those people to finish conversation number 2. And then at the end of that week, Saturday, we had conversation number 3 for whoever ended up at that time in conversation number 3. And so week by week by week, we were creating pasta, right? 1 week at a time, 1 batch of pasta every week. And by the end of the month, you had a whole bunch of batches of pasta at various stages of interest and so forth. Now, how do we really cement and ferment that experience? We have a lock-in event. That lock-in event usually invited big picture. It was, success stories, an out-of-town speaker. And so that lock-in event wasn't really so much to introduce new people, although, of course, it's an opportunity to invite people, of course. But it was mostly the reason for that lock-in event was to lock in all those batches that were made during that month to cement and crystallize their commitment so that in the following weeks, they would be the ones in launch mode. And so month after month, you've created a new launch. Every month is a launch. Every month is a launch. And what does a launch look like? Repeat weekly events, schedule and contact and invite on a daily basis. So that's what I call the rhythm of the business. When you understand it's just a flow of people going through a process of information, taking them from one level to the next level to the next level, higher levels of involvement and commitment, then if you're really in launch mode, you have to pre-plan your calendar of events beginning with the big one, that monthly event. You got to think, okay, I'm going to have one. Who am I going to have if I'm going to have anybody at it in terms of a keynote speaker? And then you've established that. Now you get to your weekly schedule. And then you're looking for your team who you're going to engage in on that daily contact and invite. So that's how we have been working with this group here online, is working backwards. We started with the big picture, those big events, a commitment to those big events, and we've been slowly backing into the very most important thing that initiates all launches, contact and invite.
So there's 15 of us here. So you said the other day there were 45 people coming to the luncheon that have had their mugshots. So is this
approximately? Yeah, I'll be sending out invites either later today or tomorrow.
So this is important. This is so important for us all to know, for everybody in Orlando to know. Is this going to be one of the topics for everybody, or just distribute this YouTube out for those that aren't here for this kind of teaching? Just like
this level of information is not possible because you're dealing with context, and most people are not at this level where this is the kind of conversation we can have. They're more fundamental. So the foundations of this will be in place.
Good.
Yeah. Well, guys, this is all the time we have for this call. I appreciate everyone coming. Sorry I hogged the show. Thanks for the feedback, those of you who jumped in here. Let's get this to cement a little bit, digest. You might want to reflect on this call and sort of take some notes and say, okay, what exactly am I learning from this? Because this is the best I can offer you. This has been the key to my strategy in building the business. It still remains true because it's principally based. The only thing that changes is, we can do some of our meetings online now, whereas before that was not really possible.
So you'll have this posted this afternoon, because
yes,
some of us do have some people that need to hear this now.
I will be posting this as soon as I'm able to download it.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.